Visors, masks and mouth coverings. The face of life post-COVID, as lockdown slowly lifts and the latest figures give us ever finer detail. The new threat level of 3 means the virus is still in general circulation, but transmission is no longer growing exponentially. Nowhere in the UK is the R, or reproduction rate, greater than 1. And for the first time, the government revealed the growth rate, how quickly the number of actual infections is changing. The average is just below 0, with London the only area where it may still be very slightly on the rise.
The virus, of course, hasn't gone away. That's something we need to continue to keep in our minds, but there's no doubt the virus in Scotland is now firmly in retreat.
But there have been fresh reminders of the disproportionate effect the virus is having on particular communities. New data shows men with a disability are 1.9 times more likely to die of COVID-19, and disabled women 2.4 times more likely than those without a disability. A different study found South Asian people who are hospitalized with the virus are 19% more likely to die of it than white people. Overnight, questions about regional readiness and the new normal. 2 meat factories in Wales closed down after apparent outbreaks and infections.
Months ago, we had no cases. Suddenly, we got 1 case last week, and it revolved from there, and it snowballed up to 58. You know, couldn't believe it. You know, the company did the right thing, you know, sending people home, but it just got worse and worse and worse. So that's why we had to shut the factory.
The national lesson from North Wales, for the time being at least, this is the future. An effective track and trace system is absolutely crucial. A working app might help as well.
Wow, this is a test for them. Now, the scale, 600 workers at this plant, all needing testing, isolation, and their immediate contacts, the tracing of all their contacts. So, yep, we're going to have to get used to this, and it's hugely worrying when it happens.
In Yorkshire, the first that frontline doctors heard about an outbreak at another meat plant wasn't via the NHS, but a government press conference.
There's another in Kirklees in Yorkshire.
People got very concerned. Where is it? Will it affect us? Can we still take our children to school? And so on. And the council will be having to deal with that. So I was a bit cross that he mentioned us in that way, but also very proud the way that Kirklees has been handling this outbreak. Because, of course, outbreaks are going to happen.
The data may well suggest the virus is now in retreat, but there will be outbreaks. And Channel 4 News has been told that those crucial local COVID response plans won't all be finished till the end of the month. We're told escalation and decision-making plans for larger outbreaks are also still being established.
Well, we're joined now by Sir David King, the former government chief scientific advisor who set up the independent SAGE group of scientific experts. Welcome back on the programme, Sir David. So let me start with this. 173 deaths at least in the last 24 hours. The R number still roughly between 0.7 and 0.9. And then, of course, the World Health Organization has just warned in the last hour that we are in a very perilous and extremely dangerous phase of this pandemic. So is it right, do you think, to lower the alert level from 4 to 3?
I think it's a very strange decision to make at this point in time. I think we all want to see that we emerge from this pandemic as quickly as possible and as safely as possible without endangering ourselves with the possibility of a second wave. The message that goes across when we reduce from 4 to 3 in this way is that we seem to be winning the battle. But the number of cases per day is still very high for the whole of England. And so if we want to really manage to emerge from this epidemic quickly, we need to make sure that we have a proper find, test, trace, isolate, and support system. So if I can just say, what do I mean by that? First of all, we know that the percentage of people going down with the virus today that are actually being tested is actually rather small. It's in the region of 25 to 30%. So we're not finding all of the cases of people who are getting the disease. Our estimate is if we were finding 85%, we would be in a very good place, but we need to be up there. We also are saying, right, the test is one critical aspect of this, but each part of this is the same criticality. So that the tracing, what do we mean by tracing? It means isolating all of the people who've been in contact with somebody with the disease. And how do we check that they are isolated?
Okay. But so sorry to interrupt. So how crucial is it then, how important is it that the government told us yesterday that the tracing app won't be up and running perhaps as late as, the autumn or the winter?
I mean, this is just a terrible comment on the state of management of the whole process. Why didn't we get on with the test and trace business back in February or March? Why did we begin so late? The rest of Europe has got a test and trace system up and running. We all know we cannot emerge from this epidemic without a fully operative system, and we don't have it. And the reason is because we have avoided local authorities, local GPs. Yes.
Okay, but at the same time, politicians have to make tough decisions. They've always told us that they're following the science. Do you think that's still the case, or is the science now being massaged to follow the politics?
Well, I very much fear that that is the case. I think when we know that the scientists were resisting the change of the alert number from 4 to 3 before, and the politicians were pushing very hard for that to happen. And now we've gone into 3, and at the same time, the Prime Minister is clearly saying, but we've got a long way to go to get out of this. So I'm really questioning whether we've been following the science from the very beginning.
So how dangerous is this moment? I mean, should we listen to the World Health Organization and their warning about this being incredibly perilous now? And does that apply to this country as well?
We are in a perilous situation. And of course, we would like to see that we can come out of lockdown in October this year, perhaps. But in order to achieve that, all of the hard work done by the British public in going into isolation over this long period of time could be lost if we rush out of lockdown too quickly. Right. In other words, if we have lots of infected people moving around in the public domain.
Got it. So, David King, thank you very much indeed. Sorry to cut you short there. Thanks for coming on the programme again.
Thank you.
Now, the Welsh Government is continuing to ease its strict lockdown restrictions from Monday, and the ban on non-local travel could be lifted early next month. First Minister Mark Drakeford said that could mean holidaymakers were able to return, but initially only to self-contained accommodation like caravans and cottages. Our Home Affairs correspondent Andy Davis reports.
Porthcawl's Coney Beach in South Wales. The town's famed Elvis Festival later this year remains in doubt, but there is certainty now for Wales's high streets. Shops here can reopen on Monday, outdoor sports courts, places of worship for private prayer too, and house viewings for vacant properties. It's the biggest easing yet of restrictions announced by the Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford.
Oh, it's good. They got the shops opening next Monday, and all retail shops, isn't they?
Yeah, we can't drive any further than 5 miles, though. That's a bugbear.
Mark Drakeford has repeatedly stressed the need for a cautious approach in Wales, perhaps epitomised by the guidance still in place that says no one should travel more than 5 miles from their home unless it's essential. That stay local message is also likely to change, said the First Minister today, but not until next month.
This means that we are asking people in Wales to stay local, to keep Wales safe for 2 more weeks. And the reason we're doing that is simple. Coronavirus is not over. Every day, people are being infected.
Well, obviously, none of these decisions are easy, and safety has to be the key word here. But what we have to be focused on is clear messaging. And the 5-mile rule that the First Minister is doggedly hanging on to is confusing people. It's unnecessary and not needed. I mean, I could jump on a push bike now and cycle 40 miles, yet I couldn't get in my car and go over 5 miles. That just makes no sense at all.
The 5-mile limit, says the Welsh Government, has been to protect more rural areas with lower levels of the virus. But it's left the country's tourism industry notably exposed. It's expected outdoor tourist attractions will now open next month. Self-contained holiday accommodation from mid-July. Welcome news for many, but not far enough for James Quantick, whose businesses here in Porthcawl include a pub and restaurant.
I need to hear about when licensed premises will be able to open. I need to know about when sit-down restaurants and service can take place. Definitive guidance.
I'm not a fan of the Welsh Government, to be honest, mate. I better leave it at that.
But most we spoke to here today approved of the lockdown approach in Wales.
I do think they've done well. I think slow and steady is the best way to go.
With the advice he's being given, i.e. scientific advice, then I think he probably is doing the right thing.
I've got 2 young children off school. My wife and myself are key workers. For things to go back to normal tomorrow, life would be a lot easier. But I think they're doing things at a cautious pace, and it's for the good of Wales, really. So I think it's just about being patient and sticking with it.
As to whether Wales would follow the rest of the UK in allowing so-called bubble arrangements for households, a decision on that, said the Welsh Government, could come in the next few weeks.